Welcome to the Positivity Room, where the good vibes grow.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Pure Positivity Podcast. My name is Bobby. I got my lovely wife, Eden.
Hello.
We got Rosa over here. We got the star of the show who wants to say hello. I am Carlito. Yes, sir. He's telling you to come join us as we discuss the growing mirror between pet wellness and human wellness. And we have a really good one for you guys today. We have Totoniks on the show. Here's what we've figured out along our journey. Dogs and cats, they don't really care about nutrition trends. They care about biology. Totoniks is interesting because it forces us to ask a question most of the pet industry avoids. Why are we throwing away some of the most nutrient-dense parts of the animal and then spending billions trying to replace them? Maybe Geoff here could shed some light on that.
Hey, look, guys, thank you. And yeah, nice to be here and really appreciate you taking the time to have me on board. Thank you. So thanks for that.
Right on.
Yeah, it was my background goes way, way back. Spent 12 years in British military and then 12 years British police, so working dogs every day and just learning more and more from them as I work with them. I always said I never taught any of my dogs. They always taught me, and that is the same today. I learned so much from them. One thing I did learn was to watch and to understand and to listen and to delve into one of the things I've always done is always question why. And when I first went on the police dogs, we were feeding biscuits or kibble, as people call it, and that was a standard, and dogs were getting stomach torsion and dying horrifically. It meant we couldn't take them out after they'd eaten because the chances of that happening increased greatly. And so my first question, well, why are we feeding this stuff? If we think that's the cause, why wouldn't eat cooked food? I've never seen a dog cook its dinner, so why would we do that? And of course nobody could answer it. And so I thought, well, I'll go and do my own homework. Back then we didn't have the internet. I'm old. Went to the library and found as many books as I could and watched a few movies, and documentaries, and came to the quick realization that my parents were right. They used to cook food once every week for our dogs growing up as kids. Liver and it was kidneys and it was meat and big stew, and then they get it throughout the week they would be eating that stuff, and never biscuits or kibble didn't even go in the bowl or anywhere near it. And my dogs always had wet noses and lived very healthy, happy lives. And so the more I researched, the more I realized that nature gets it right and humans break it. It's really that simple. Nature's been around a lot longer than us, and as my brother, he's one of the world's leading scientists, has always said, science only understands what nature already knows. And he said, if you look at nature, Geoff, you'll get your answers, and it's true. And that's what I did. And of course, quickly I learned to feed raw. But I realized, not every dog could get to that. There's not enough meat on the planet for humans, let alone every dog. And so I founded K9, and I was disappointed in myself because I came to the quick realization that, I can't get it to every dog or every cat for that matter. And so I left the industry. I went back to doing what I love, and that's communicating with dogs, teaching them to look after people. And Shane, my first sales guy for K9 National, came into my office one day and said, Geoff, you've got to come back. There's been nothing new in the industry for 15 years. You've got to come back. And I'm going, I've been there, Shane, I've done it. I said, I love what I did. I said, but, he said, no, honestly, just have a think, come up with something. So I did research, and it's a lot easier now, as we all know. The internet's fantastic. And I thought, what was the most important ingredient that I put into K9 Natural, and that was the blood. I knew that from day one. That was my brother. backing that up with, he said it's the elixir of life. Every protein, vitamin, mineral, bioavailability is through the roof. It's how they would naturally drink. They don't drink water in nature. They don't need to. They get it from the kill. So he said, and that stuck with me for so many years. And I thought, okay, I knew blood was the best thing. All right, what can I do with blood? How can I get blood? And, I was collecting it back in the day. But I thought, what can I do with it, and how can I put it in a format that means every dog on the planet can get it again? And that was the start of the journey. And very quickly, when I started to research what blood, I looked to Chinese medicine for the answer for that one. So they've used venison products for over 3,000 years. And we didn't really understand why they were so good. We do now. Venison blood contains a product called IGF-1. For those people that are athletes out there and into sport, they'll realise IGF-1 is banned. It's a banned substance, could you believe? It's available to us all when we're born. We all have it, and it's a growth promoter. But obviously deer keep it for a lot longer, and it regrows their antlers every 12 months. So it's a pretty impressive substance. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. But it's not just for bone growth, it's also muscle. Every cell relies on it. So yeah, it's an important factor to have flowing through your system, basically. The more of it you've got, the better you can perform, obviously, because your cells regrow, your muscle regrows, and of course athletes tagged on to that one. Hence it's banned now in sport, but not for dogs. But no, in this format we're not doing it to break records. We're doing it to enhance their lives, really. So yeah, when I realised that there is different types and different properties of blood. So once I realised there were different properties with even blood, then I wanted to target the best. And so when I realised it was venison, I looked at, from a perspective of sustainability, and obviously making sure I can supply venison blood, how much we've got available in New Zealand. And fortunately, New Zealand turned out to be the largest herds on the planet. So we've got 1.2 million deer here that roam the hills, eat grass, obviously, and end up in plates eventually. But it was what was happening after that occurred that concerned me the most. And the more research I did, obviously, the more I realised it was being poured down the drain. And yeah, what an absolute waste. It is only humans that would do that. That literally waste that part. I mean, nature doesn't do that. The carnivores don't do that. They devour it. Everyone says there's lots of myths out there, but I like to explode them. That when they kill prey, they take the stomach content and they get to that first. It is not the case. They go there first to rip the stomach out of the animal, to get in through the rib cage, so they can get to the heart, we believe. So the heart is the most nutritious part, second to the blood, that is. So the heart obviously pumps the blood. It's a muscle meat, so it fills them. It's the prized possession, really. And the reason they drag the stomach out and spill it is because if they ate the stomach contents, they'd be extremely ill. There's way too much veg there, and they can't digest veg. And that's the reason behind it. And obviously, every member of that family drinks that blood because they know it's the elixir of life. And I know when I studied up in Alaska, it was -40. There's no water buckets. There's no rivers that are flowing. All right, there's nowhere for wolves to drink. They eat that way for a reason. Yeah, and nature provides it that way for a reason. And cats more so. If we talk about cats, they were desert dwellers. So they don't have that instinct to drink even water. So their prey has to be moist. So that's why the next range will be Totoniks for cats. It's coming very soon next year. And they will benefit hugely from this too. But it was a case of,
we've used your product for our cat too.
Yeah.
So
well, there you go. There you go.
Loved
Yeah,
it.
it's, yeah, sure. It's, yeah. And I'm tweaking it as well. So it's, yeah, it's the next level what's coming.
sure.
What's going.
That's exciting.
Yeah, yeah, it is for me. I'm so excited that, you know, I can use natural products and make such a difference to the welfare of our, you know, dogs and cats and the ones that
Yeah.
rely on us for their food at the end of the day. It's been my goal ever since, you know, losing dogs on the streets. I vowed I would pay them back, and yeah, it's so cool to come back with a product that I can get to everyone. You know, and I say, with Totoniks, you know, you're helping save the planet one drink at a time, right? If you're giving this to your dogs, you know, not only are you helping them, you're stopping a massive story of pollution, and one I had no understanding of really until I delved into, you know, the collection of blood, and I was looking for research papers, and as we know, that's a lot easier now online. But I was pulling up research papers that were saying, you know, what will happen if we don't repurpose blood, if we don't stop it going into the drains around the globe untreated. And they were horrific reading. Absolutely.
That's something interesting to think about. I know, like the next level of circumstance, you know, like there's so many different levels to this, you know. What happens when you're not recycling that, you know, back into the living bodies that are on this planet that are giving life to the next generations?
100%. And I was asked to give a talk at Superfood, just gone, at the sustainability conference. And yeah, and they said, you know, oh, can you talk about, you know, the circular economy? And I went, yep, that's really easy to explain. And okay, good. I said, I talk about it via nature, and it's really simple to explain that way. And it emphasizes why we shouldn't waste anything. So in nature, herbivores were put on the earth for a reason, to eat the grass. Grass was put on the earth for a reason, to feed the herbivores. Carnivores were put on the earth for a reason, to stop the herbivores completely decimating the grass, as Yellowstone National Park showed with the Renee Atkins when they reintroduced wolves there. It started to bring back the ecology. So, and whatever the carnivore passes out should regrow that grass. Right now, most dogs that are on kibble, if they're passing something out, I can assure you it doesn't grow that grass; it kills it. Right, and so we are breaking that chain. So what I said was, you know, if you look at that from a blood perspective, then, you know, the animals would devour that blood. We know from the past we used to use blood and bone to regrow grass. And the reason it does that is the vitamins and minerals it contains, right? Everything that we need, literally everything, protein, vitamins, is contained in blood. It really is that simple. It is a superfood. We talk about superfood for humans, right? We're going about black currants and raspberries, and I laugh, right? The superfood is actually in a jar. We should be vampires now. I mean, I joke.
You're blowing my mind with this, because honestly, it's like you go further than that, because our blood it literally carries information. So when you are, you know, when you're consuming this blood, you're consuming generations and generations of people, the animals who've consumed this blood and passed it down. There's information in there, DNA. All these things are contained in the blood. It's a river of life.
There you go. It is the elixir of life. End of story, right? And it's the worst thing we do with it is pour it down the drain. And so there's a lake where I was born in Manchester, and there's a lake in the Lake District in the UK. It's called Lake Windermere, and it turned green, I think, 3 years ago because of algae blooms. And this is happening around the world, right? And it's protein that's causing that. It's the protein levels, the runoffs from the rivers and the streams that are causing that. Yeah, the heat. The more heat, obviously, grows the protein can grow and the algae forms. All right, the studies that I read were unbelievable in the impact that we will have if we get enough people using blood, all right, and stopping it going down the drain, and the animals benefit from it so much. One guy from Orlando that took this product on, he's got 3 dogs, and he said, "Oh, one's got hip problems, one's got gut, so I'll use those ones, and I'll do some tests, and I'll send you the results." And they're just staggering. He said, "My dogs have never been healthier, running around, and they're older dogs." And he was going away on a holiday. He won't mind me talking about it. And he said he was going, and his oldest dog was 20, right? And he said it's not getting up. He said, I'm really struggling, Geoff. He said, "I'm just emailing you to see, do you think I could give some of this Totoniks to him?" And I'm going, and I explained what it could do, and he said, "He's just so old and frail, I'm not sure, And I said, "Seriously? Then just do it. Just give it him." And he's going, he said, "Look," and he took a video. He said, "Look, he can't even stand up." I said, "Give it him." He took one. 12 hours later, that dog was running around the garden. He said, I cannot believe what I'm seeing. He said, "I'm going away." He said, "I literally kid you not, Geoff, I was going to put the dog down." He said, it got to that point, and he said, and the dog was fine, he said, "But look at him now, look at him." And that will have been from big boost of iron, right? Big hit of iron, which, we need more of as we get older. We need more protein as we get older. Okay, and that dog just had a super boost of it. And we're hearing it all the time. Dogs are on chemo, dogs, because they're like us. They suffer going through those illnesses, and they are literally bouncing back so quickly. And but yeah, I know my dogs look at me. Ever since I developed this, I can never stop feeding it, because my crew of 5, some of them we call them picky, don't we? Fussy. The smaller dog, more picky, fussy they become. And that's fair enough, they wouldn't be eating big game, would they? They wouldn't be chasing around catching deer and stuff. So, a couple of them were always, they'd look at the food, they'd eat it because it was all raw, but they never sort of devoured it. They never wolfed it down, as I say. Gosh, now they just like fight over the bowls. It's just hilarious watching them take it on, and they will only do that if there's something in there that they need. They can taste and obviously smell exactly what's in that bowl. You put this in, and you've got a good fight on your hands. But no, it's incredible to.
They really love it. I mean,
Well, that's why we had to share the sample packet with all 5, ranging from, a 5-pounder to 75-pounder, because it's like we got to share a little bit to everybody, and they all wanted it.
And to your point there, with your friend, the story, it kind of leads to something that we try to help people understand all the time, that like our dogs and cats, they already like understand this stuff instinctively. It's humans that need an explanation. And that's where, a lot of folks are stuck in that spot where they're just afraid to mess with things. They're like, "Oh, but it's going okay."
Yeah. I know. Look, I understand that fully, and I am a firm believer that, tread carefully, whatever you do. And that's why I will never produce a product that would harm a dog. Ever. I will always turn to nature. There's two of my Totoniks range that contain mollusks, so the Greenland mussel, and it's in there obviously for its anti-inflammatory properties. But there are dogs out there that do have shellfish allergies, which makes sense, right? They wouldn't naturally go and catch a mussel from the sea, right? So, so there's a warning on the box to say, if it does show any allergic reaction to it, then obviously stop it. I think we've had 2 cases in coming up 18 months now. Where one dog had diarrhea. But that's pretty good. We haven't had anything. But even so, not every dog can tolerate fish for whatever reason, or certainly shellfish. So just like humans, really, we're all different. But on the whole, there is nothing in there that would ever harm them. And that will give them a reaction, but it won't obviously kill them. But yeah, I've had
You say a lot of times feedback. Your body's giving feedback when that's happening. So essentially, if it was already super dehydrated and the animal scarfed it up so fast, it could disrupt some
Sure.
things. But
Yes.
essentially, it would be very
Yeah.
good for it too, right? So
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Nothing, I say nothing in life's 100%. Nothing is.
Nothing's
But,
absolute.
yeah, but it's as close as I can make it. And I won't change. The ingredients in there are all natural. They are what's out there in nature. When people question me putting in bentonite clay, and there's lots of research out there if you read it on bentonite clay, but it depends where it comes from. It's like everything else. There's bentonite clay and there's bentonite clay. So where we harvest it from, it's a place called Pure South, and it's got that name for a reason. It comes off a glacial melt in the Alpine fault area in New Zealand. It's pretty big. It's a glacier, and that glacier has melted over millions of years, and it's formed a seam, and that's formed the seam of this bentonite clay. And we know about the properties of bentonite clay that it's an antitoxin, so it will clear toxins, and we know why now. It's positively charged as an ion, so it attracts metals and all of those things. So it's pretty impressive, but it's obviously a very fine powder. And dogs would naturally eat soil for that reason. It's basically soil. So when I popped it into the diet, obviously there's some research out there that says, oh, bentonite clay's got all of these bad things in it, heavy metals and all of those things. Of course, I test everything way above human food standards. It's mainly pharmaceutical level we go to. And certainly for bentonite clay and the kelp, it's pharmaceutical grade. So, it's tested to those levels. There's absolutely no impurities in it, no arsenic, nothing from the New Zealand one. So, so I go that extra mile to make sure that, everything is as safe. Well, it's safer for dogs than any human product that's on the market, that's for sure. Or else the other good news is it can't leave New Zealand if it's not. It has to be tested for all of those things to get an export certificate from New Zealand. So everything that comes out of New Zealand will have got tested to those same lengths as well. So it's not just my product. It's any product that leaves this shore. It has to be salmonella free, E. coli free, tick, tick, tick. And you have to have the certification to prove that. So, we can stand behind it from that perspective as well. But yeah, it makes it easy when it's natural. Be a bit harder if it wasn't. But yeah.
That's true. And what you guys, are doing with this as well, because, I mean, even if people don't understand what blood is doing in that like super intense area, the hydration part is, I think that's pretty easy for people to get. And I think that's something that I wanted to touch because I think that's a huge hidden problem in pets in pet ownership in general. Even with us and ourselves, we're under mineralized. We're not getting the hydration that we think we are from this, whatever you want to call it, dead water. So it's a really big thing. So how did hydration become such a core focus for you?
Great. Okay. So I don't know whether you've heard of Professor Tim Noakes.
No.
If you haven't, look him up. Okay, Tim Noakes, Noakes, and his first book I ever read was called Waterlogged. Interesting title. He is a top scientist over in South Africa and food nutritionist, but loves sports. Started to do marathons, something I did back in the day, and he lost a colleague on one of these marathons, and it was at the time when some big major companies were buying up all the drinks companies around the world and promoting the fact that we are all dehydrated. All right. So they were pushing this really, really big, and So they increased the number of water stations on these marathons. Everyone started to drink more and more fluids, tried to make the numbers that they were being told from science that we need. And all they were doing was stripping more and more minerals from their system. They were flushing them. Water does not contain minerals or vitamins or anything else unless it's added, and then we can discuss how that works. Not. But so he was horrified. His best friend died on that marathon. And he started to do the research, long story short, realized that, there was a huge amount of marketing behind it, exploding these myths that we were all dehydrated. So I'd read that book. I understood what it took to be hydrated, the fact that you do need fluids, but you also need vitamins, minerals, and protein for your cells to open up and absorb that fluid. Otherwise, you are just flushing it down the toilet and getting more and more dehydrated, would you believe, by drinking more and more water, which sounds completely the opposite to what it should be. So I knew that was a huge problem for dogs, because most people feed them a dry diet, and I understand why. Not every dog will be able to get a raw diet. It's an impossibility. But I also knew when I was doing it to my dogs, the amount of fluid that they drank afterwards was horrific. And I'd obviously read this book then and gone, hey, there's got to be a better way. How many dogs are dehydrated? When I was growing up, every dog had a wet nose. Right? Shiny wet nose. Again, we were feeding the right food. So, and that was like in a broth as well, which was even better, right? It was soaked in fluid because it'd been cooked in that broth, and they never threw anything away back then. They just tipped it over. So, growing up and seeing dogs with cracked noses, and when I started on the police dogs, this was a big thing for me. I couldn't understand why my dogs weren't as efficient as I thought they should be. When I say that, they were struggling to find people, and and everyone was saying, "Oh, it's normal. That's the way it is." It's so busy on the streets. They can't identify. Well, I thought if they can't identify, a scent, then what's the point of having them? I was always questioning things, and there was a lot of things out there that have been passed on throughout generations. That people were getting wrong. I said, so how come a bloodhound can, scent so well? What's the difference, And so I went and looked at bloodhounds. Of course, they were constantly drooling. They were constant fluid. All right, they had a really moist olfactory system. So the more moist it is, the better the dog can track, right? Scent, I understand it all now. Bacteria, it sticks on those scent particles, stick on their noses because it's moist. And so they can analyze the direction. It's just incredible. So when I swapped my dogs onto a raw diet, overnight, I increased their success rate through the roof. It was absolutely staggering. So dehydration is a massive issue, and just pure water doesn't fix it. So this is the other part of Totoniks. This is the magic part, in my view. What is the best way for us to absorb anything into our system? So, any ideas?
I mean, blood, right? Because it's got so many different things in it.
Right, good. But if we just, which I do, I powder the blood through a technique called spray drying, which, only heats it for 3 seconds. It comes out a really fine powder, and I do that so it keeps every property in there. It's a unique technique. But I do that to keep it in a state so it will last, all right, in those sachets. It'll last for up to 3 years. So I've got to get it down to less than 4% moisture. Okay. That in that state, all right, it's not as bioavailable as it should be. In nature, it's in a liquid format. Okay. The reason it needs to be put back into a liquid format is this: bioavailability. The most bioavailable ability of any product that you eat, any food that you eat, is in your mouth. Would you believe? Easy way to explain it. My brother taught me this one. He said, if you, heaven forbid, you start to have a heart attack, if I give you an aspirin and you swallow it, it's not going to do you any good. If I give you an aspirin and you put it under your tongue, you're going to get the benefit of that within 30 seconds. You can
Sublingual.
absorb it. It's the mucous membrane in your mouth, all right? And this shouldn't tell you or guess this, but if you want to get extremely drunk, don't, um, drink something through a straw. Drink alcohol through a straw. Washes through the roof of your mouth. Breaks through the brain barrier, blood-brain barrier, instantly. It's extremely unhealthy, so don't. But yeah, when I think back to when I was a teenager, it makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
So making it into a liquid takes it to that next level. All right, it doesn't have to get through, and certainly for dogs, because they have unbelievable cells that line their esophagus, their gut, and they're sulfuric acid basically, pH level 1, and it's designed that way so that they can eat things that have been dead for 3 weeks, right, and go, that's good. We'd be extremely sick. We haven't got that strength of acid to kill that bacteria. They do. But imagine what it can do to food as well. All right. And that's why they would bite chunks of meat and swallow them whole. The acid works on the outside, but they've still got a fair bit of stuff to digest when it gets to their gut, doing it that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
totally.
if I can get this into a liquid format inside a dog, I've won. All right, they will absorb it instantly, and that's why people say to me, in 12 hours, oh my God, the dog changed. It's just unbelievable. It's not. They're absorbing it. They're getting the benefit of it. So the hydration is key for us. All right, your bone broths, your soups, your chicken broths when you're sick, it's because you're absorbing the nutrients instantly, right, in that broth format. So yeah, so it's vital. But water doesn't cut it, as you know.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a great tool for a lot of folks out there, and it's also just a great kind of bridge into I guess the species appropriate feeding, world. You don't need to go all or nothing, one thing like this can kind of hit a lot of birds, it's like you're hitting, like raw feeding, getting it some
Yes.
actual protein and hydration and minerals and things like micronutrients, things that you're not going to
You've
get from a
got
lot
it.
of foods. Yeah.
100% right. And people forget that word. And I, the easiest way to explain it for me about micronutrients and calcium, everybody talks about what are the calcium levels in food? What are the calcium, right? So calcium is one ion removed from a metal on the periodic table. Okay? So it is that hard, right? To digest, it's that hard to break. We know. We've felt bone. Okay? So this is the human's understanding of it and how badly we got it wrong. So we started to put calcium because of rickets into everything. Okay, fortified with calcium, yogurts, you name it, everything contains calcium. People with osteoarthritis used to go to the doctors, and the doctors would give them calcium tablets, right? Absolutely no effect. And easiest way to think why. Tell me, how does an elephant grow to the size of an elephant eating grasses? How does a giraffe grow to the size of a giraffe eating the acacia tree? How much calcium's in that? You need micronutrients of calcium, all right, to grow bone. What you need is the main ingredient is phosphorus. And the only way you get that is from meat, fish, and nuts. Okay? So if you're not eating those, if you're not eating protein, and I mean real protein, or you're absorbing it, you are never going to build bone or strengthen it. And this was two scientists in New Zealand won awards worldwide for this research, right? They cracked the whole osteoarthritis side of things. It is now the reason why the older we get, like me, the more exercise I do. Weights, all right, bike, And the reason for that is if I lose muscle, okay, from my skeletal system, my skeletal system starts to shrink. Doesn't need to be strong to hold weak muscles, right? So the more muscle you lose, the more of your skeletal system you use. And they looked at tennis players' arms as a comparison. Their playing arm and their non-playing arm. The bone density in their playing arm is 4 times that of their non-playing arm. And that is purely to hold the muscle that they need on the bone. If we, by the time we die, we should have only have lost 10% of our muscle strength. 10%, right? I climbed a mountain the other day. I'm 63. All right, I did 25k up a hill and back with my dogs. All right. So at the end of the day, I will not stop, but I will make sure I eat protein, lots of it. All right. I drink this stuff. Don't drink. I don't do the gorilla muscle one, but I have the others. All right. I'm not saying you should, but seriously, I know what protein does, and I know how important it is, and I know how important exercise is. So, my dogs, 2 of them have literally no hips. All right, that's why they were up for adoption. The cost to get that operation done. I knew I didn't need to do it. Put them on a raw diet. They're on Totoniks. They're on their hip and joints every day. They went up that mountain with me. All right.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah, and they are griffins. They're this big. They are more than capable of doing that if, like us, we get the right nutrients, we get the right foods, not what people think we should have. And so, yeah, calcium is a myth. There is more than enough calcium.
The ratio, right?
It's another
The
myth.
calcium phosphorus ratio is one of the things that people don't understand. And I don't mean to interrupt you there. I feel like, because there's a lot of people who come into our shop and they don't, especially cat owners who are talking about phosphorus, and they don't really understand that it's not just phosphorus as a single ingredient, that there's cofactors, and that they work together. You know what I mean? Like calcium and phosphorus. So the ratio is what's important.
And this is the catch with any diet or any food or anything else. It needs to be in a format whereby your body can decide whether it needs it or not. And if it doesn't need it, it should be able to let it go. All right? Unfortunately, we produce rocks and minerals from rocks, right? We crush rocks. How are we supposed to digest that? Yeah? How is the body supposed to process it? It's impossible. Yeah? So there are so many things that we get wrong as humans.
Yeah.
But
that's in almost every dog food too, sodium bicarbonate. So it's usually one of the final ingredients. So just know that it's just grinded up rocks.
Yeah, 100%. If it says vitamins and minerals added, it's rocks. Okay, it's just rocks. All right.
That's all it is.
Yeah, and the dogs have the most expensive urine on the planet if they're taking it.
Right.
Simple as that.
I love this conversation, man. I love where this is going. I love it because you do things like so clean, and you do it from the right place. I mean, sourcing as well for you guys. You do this from New Zealand, right?
Sure, 100%.
Yeah, and you don't get much cleaner than New Zealand, honestly. I mean, some of the most strict guidelines that there are, right?
And it's the reason I moved here. Seriously?
Yeah.
Because the reason I came here, I cheated. I said I came to train the police dogs, but I didn't really. I actually came here, seriously, to make, these types of things for dogs. And it's just, it's staggering that I've got access to it. It really is. It's just incredible. But yeah, and it's nice to know that I can bring it to the world. But seriously, question any dog, any human, I can never make a diet for you, as in a perfect diet. It doesn't exist. I don't know what you do. I have dogs that want to lie by the fire. People have dogs that want to run up mountains too, I don't know what that person's dog's going to do. But what I do provide them is with whether it was canine, it was a food, When it's this, it's a drink, but it's a protein packed drink, vitamin and mineral packed drink. It's a food still, but it's one that I know doesn't matter. Everyone can have, and it's not going to harm them. And if they don't need it, they can pee it out too. All right, but they will absorb an awful lot of it because I know they need it. You know, the iron, and it's in a format they can digest it because nature provided it, not me, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and yeah, so it's life changing for me. It's taking dogs back to what they should be consuming and giving them a chance. Yeah.
You
Of
were you said you were a canine officer in England?
sure. Yeah, and New Zealand. Yeah.
Okay, so you did and you actually trained the dogs and you worked with the dogs
Yes.
on that was your
Sure.
job?
Yeah, on the streets.
That's
Yeah.
First of all, thanks
Yeah.
for doing what
Yeah.
you did because, that's an amazing job and there's a lot of things behind and that you guys do that people don't realize. But we work with a nonprofit here in Arizona she's a retired canine officer as well, and she
Really.
has a whole nonprofit that she tries to help and assist the canine, the service dogs when they have emergency fund for the animals. And
Wow.
she helps speak at the local when they'll have her out to speak about nutrition and a lot of the stuff behind that, because that's what I wanted to mainly, that was my main question here that I'm getting to, is just the amount of actual, because they usually governments will only look at things black and white when it comes to money, but the amount of money that is being left on the table by not taking care of these dogs the proper way is in the, like, I don't even, you can't even put a number on it, probably billions and billions of dollars a year.
It's staggering, right? I mean, it's big companies that dictate what those dogs eat, right?
And those
Unfortunately.
big companies are losing their own money by doing it this way.
Yeah, 100% right. I know. Absolutely. Yeah. But we will make small changes real quick.
Yeah.
They'll become big changes. And yeah,
Yeah.
um, I'm more than likely doing there's a conference in Raleigh this year in August. So I'm hoping to be over there for that, and it's a conference for working dogs and throughout America. And yeah, hoping that I'm going to be a speaker there at that one. So yeah, I'll be telling them what they should be putting in those bowls and yeah, and
Yeah,
the
that's
difference.
awesome. I mean, it's such a deep conversation that it's just, that's all it is. No judgment, no saying like, hey, you guys are doing it wrong or whatever. It's just that the conversation needs to be had because I think you touched on a little bit earlier with your own working dog. That's how I kind of picked up on it. You were saying that the cognitive abilities were just not,
Awesome.
they weren't there because of the food, right?
Yeah, so
That's just one,
yeah,
that's just one thing.
yeah, on the olfactory systems, right, were absolutely below par. What massively, and I learned this when I founded Canine Natural because I did a study at the university here, Dr. Nick Cave, and I explained to him, I said, what when I convert my dogs onto raw, why did they change so much? I saw the muscles grow, right? It was incredible. The fitness levels increased, but it was their nose work, right? There was a 5% chance of me catching you with a dog, up to an 80%, just purely on a change of diet. And I'm like, what the heck? And he said, no, there's got to be more to it. He said, the protein, everything we understand from the muscle perspective, and keeping them fit. He said, but there's got to be more. I said, good, tell me. So we did tests. It was two group found split in two, and I've still got this. I've got them on slides, and I'll be presenting them at the big shows that I go to. So for the people with working dogs, so they can see the difference it makes from a scenting perspective. And he said, no, it's the fact that dogs are so dehydrated. So we put them on treadmills. We started to run them to see about the fitness levels. And of course, he realized that CO2 coming out of the dogs on kibble was horrific. Now, we knew back then, if your olfactory system was dry, it impacted on scent work. They didn't know how much. They do now, and it's huge. So dogs fed the right food can detect down to 2 cells of a virus inside the human body. So my dogs can do COVID and all of those things, right? And at 2 cells, they will tell me if I've got COVID. Down to 2 cells.
Yep.
Really into the particle.
That's
Wow, I
incredible.
believe.
I mean, I know it's like 300 million olfactory sensory inputs or something like that, and like we have like 6 million.
Yeah, oh, it's just it's incredible. But most dogs out there are hampered because they're dehydrated. They don't have that ability, and that's the thing. They don't have the ability to know what's in that bowl. Yeah, my dogs can tell you what I ate 3 months ago, and every single
I never even
ingredient.
thought about that because the fluid, right? I mean, the embiotic fluid, all that is kind of like what carries all that.
It is purely so the nasal passages are designed, all right. So scent is bacteria. Okay, so we detect it. I was hunting people. Let's put it that way. Put it simply, that was my job. Okay, skin cells come off us all the time. Skin cells land on the ground and they start to decay. Okay, so they start to decompose. I used to rush to jobs. So if there's a burglary, I'd get there as fast as I could, thinking fresher the scent, the better. It is the complete opposite. All right, takes an hour for the scent to reach its peak. The decomposition of those skin cells. How long do you think it takes for them to disappear? How long has my dog? 3 months.
3 months.
Wow.
That's incredible.
3 months. If your dog's good enough, it will track you 3 months later.
Wow.
If they've got that moist nose. If they don't get. So what happens is when they sniff it up, those scent particles stick to their olfactory system. All right, and so they just carry on. They can track it. It is unbelievable. Yeah, we had no idea how good dogs are. No idea. Yeah,
That's incredible. And we live here in the driest part of all of America, and we try to tell people all the time about hydration, and it's so much more important here than it is in even other places. And when you do feed a species appropriate diet, that helps like tremendously. I know the first things we noticed was that they drank less water and that their poops were smaller because they were using the nutrients.
Yes.
But you gotta get the hydration thing, and this is such a great product.
Thank you. But yeah, it is the key to their lives, really. Yeah, it's the key to ours, right?
Yeah.
You know what? The
Yep.
more I looked, the more study I did. We used to carry eggs, would you believe, when we were hunters back in the Neanderthal days and chasing dinosaurs around the planet. We would carry plastic eggshells and we would carry the blood from the animals in that, and that was our drink. That's what we did, right? And they've got proof of it. So isn't it funny, things go full circle, but it's, yeah. I mean, yeah, they
You're
had to be
absolutely right. I think the future of pet nutrition is going to look more like the past. So talking about full circle,
Right.
we're getting more of these primal, ancestral, going back to our roots, whatever you want to call it. It's just it's something that we got away from, and we've seen what happened when we did.
Look, and something simple as calcium, right? Calcium getting to the arteries is calcium deposits. Way too much calcium is a bad thing. All right, it's got to go somewhere. Well, 100%, right? So, all of these things here, humans see something, we learn something, and think, oh, we need calcium, right? So then we go over the top.
Right?
Yeah. And then the opposite's true. I love using this comment. He told, what was his name? He came into our shop recently, and he's like, what we do is, as human beings, we throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
Absolutely, right? Yeah. What we can't conquer, we destroy, and what we fear, we kill.
Yeah.
That sums humans up, right?
It's a good thing is
Yeah.
I guess that's how we all that's also how we learn, you know, as human beings is that's
Yes.
it's generally through mistakes, through failures, through
Oh,
hardship and trauma and tragedy and all that.
Yeah.
That's how we learn. So, you know, I feel
it's
like
the
there's a
only way.
lot of learning going on right now.
It's the only way to learn, right?
Yeah, it
Is
really
often,
is.
yeah. But at the end of the day, yeah. I say, and it was the same with training. I mean, the training techniques that they were showing me when I first started were just wrong in so many ways, and I wouldn't do it. Right? I just fought against everything because that's who I am. Give me a reason why, and I'll do it. Right? If you can't answer my question, then I ain't touching it. So, but that was a lack of knowledge. We resort to violence, don't we? And that lack of knowledge is purely based around the fact we couldn't communicate with our dogs. I can communicate 100% with my dogs now, and people go, look at you like. And that's not because of what I've learned, it's because of research that's been done, and this was 12, 14 years ago now, over in America, Professor Burns looked at how the intelligence of dogs, so, sorry, they understood that, guys,
Okay.
sorry, Barnacle,
You're-
there you go.
Yeah, right.
They've got to, yeah,
Yeah.
they've got to look at you first before you can ask them to do something. But that's about body language, sorry. There's obviously somebody walking past that 2 seconds, I'll just go and calm them down.
It's all good. We
Guys,
we
understand.
get it.
We can always cut this out anyways if we need to.
enough. Thank you. They can't see me now.
You're good. One of our dogs is deaf, so our words don't matter. We have to get in front of her and make sign language, obviously. So it's kind of funny,
Right.
I think, when she's
Oh,
barking and stuff. And it looks like you're
yeah,
really trying to get her to quiet.
I know. So when I learned, from that research, because I got it because of my brother, so when they mapped the genome, they realized they could look at DNA sequences and see genes that showed intelligence, right? And the dog's intelligence gene was glowing, literally. They were like, wow. So this guy broke away, started to do the research, and really dug into, how intelligent dogs are. And by the age of 12 weeks, a puppy has the cognitive ability of a 2.5-year-old child. 12 weeks. 12 weeks, I had probably the cognitive ability of a 10-week-old, right? I was never very good at stuff. Yeah, practical, but yeah. Sit me down, no. So by the age of 4, your dog was still a year ahead of human children. Cognitively, a 5-year-old. I mean, 5 years old, like they can read, they can do anything. The issue was we didn't know how to communicate properly. And Professor Burns worked on that, and I learned from that, and I utilized it. So it's dead simple. Body language number 1, which you're using for your one that's deaf. So it's 90% of their communication. It's 80% of ours. So body language, voice, number 2. Number 2, what do you believe? So if I can get a dog to look at me and I use body language, there's a 90% chance they'll understand what I'm asking. If I then use actions to teach them, I can teach them any word, as long as it's a verb, all right, a doing word. An action is easy to teach them. Then we've got scent and touch, all right, the other 2 forms of communication. You combine all of those, which you can with a treat, hidden, all right, and touch, easy. You have 100% a dog's communication. Every dog can understand every single language that is spoken on the planet. They can understand sentences, right? How did we think ever that they were stupid?
I don't
Seriously?
know. They've definitely
My
got it more
dogs,
mastered than we do.
my dogs used to look at me, seriously. When I first started teaching police dogs, well, teaching, I never taught them, they taught me. When I first started observing them and asking them to do stuff, they just look at me like, You know, they tilt their head to the side. You'd be like, what do you want? And that was all. They were trying to say, I don't understand. If I used an action, they got it straight away. So long as that action responded to what I needed them to do, right? To turn on a light switch now takes me 20 seconds to show a dog. Because I know how to do the actions that will achieve the switch. That's all it is. The dog can always do it, right? The idiot human, me, is finally caught up. Yeah. Incredible world we live in. So for me, those dogs deserve not just this drink, but as part of, if you buy this drink, then they get access to that training. And they get free videos that shows them how to do all of that stuff and takes them into their world. So yeah.
So you can tell that you guys do this from the right place. You have the intention is beautiful. I can see, like, in this video, I can see how much love you have for what you do and for the pets involved. It really is beautiful, man. We're grateful that you were on today.
Yeah, you shared a lot of great information.
Yeah. Tell anybody out here where to find Totoniks, and if you guys are going to be anywhere.
Certainly. Obviously, look online. We've got an online Totoniks.com. And if you look, it's spelled with a K, by the way, not a C. If you look online, all our retailers are on there where you can buy this product. So we would love to. Yeah. Absolutely. Pure positivity, 100% right. Go there. And this is why I love stores more than online, because you can speak to people, you're real, you enthuse the product, and you support it, and that's all it takes for people. People buy from people, right?
Yeah.
And that's why stores are the best places for my products. So, and stores like yours. So, it's amazing that you're doing it. Did you know why the name came from?
I was just gonna ask that. Well,
shoot, we missed that. Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Okay, so Toto is Maori for blood.
Oh, okay.
It's also a dog, a famous one. All right, Wizard of Oz.
Right.
And tonics were drinks. All right, we couldn't spell it with a C. From a trademark perspective, you can't be too descriptive. So we couldn't say blood drinks, which is what it would have read. It does say blood drinks. But so there you go. Yep. So Maori is the native language in New Zealand. So a shout out for the native
Good info. I like that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, it's funny because we had Sean Cahill from Tavati on. We've had him on twice now, and we did not ask him where the name comes from. I
keep thinking about it. I'm like, why didn't I ask him that yet?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we can't get out every question on him.
No, I know. Look, guys, you do an awesome job. You really do, and we really appreciate you.
We really appreciate you too, man. I mean, the biggest takeaway for me is pretty simple. Dogs and cats don't really sit around arguing about nutrition. They just respond to what works. And I can tell you guys from experience, because we've used it with our own pack as well. This stuff works.
Yeah, they loved it.
Go check out Totoniks. Come into our shop. We can talk to you guys about it. Or
come to the events at any of our events, because we'll have the little samples to show what it looks like.
Yeah. Hopefully this helps people think a little bit differently about hydration and real food and what nature might still be trying to teach us.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on today, Geoff.
Appreciate you.
Pleasure.
Welcome to the Positivity